Hello and welcome to Echelon on the Commodore 64, and it says released in 1987 here on this page, but in the UK I think it was released in 1988. It was certainly reviewed by Zap in the middle of 88, where they gave it a score of 81%, and well, the review was a bit mixed because two reviewers gave it a fairly sort of lukewarm reception, and Julian Rignall was the only one who was quite enthusiastic about it. He gave it quite a glowing review, and overall it scored 81%. And the main criticism of the game was that the 3D wireframe graphics were a bit on the slow side. So quite a nice introduction sequence there. And the game's got a very heavy multi-load. I have no idea what the cassette version's like. Pretty unplayable, I would imagine, because it's a fairly non-linear structure to the game. Yep, no idea what that's like. Right, so it's asking us to insert. Oops. Right, so the idea of the game is that you're a member of the ISF, which I can't remember what it stands for. Hold on, I'll look it up. I've got the manual here. I'm sure it's nothing particularly exciting. The International Space Federation, and you're assigned to Zone 106 of, well, this shows the game's age a bit, but of the 10th planet, which has been discovered in the solar system, and the planet is named Isis. And well, the zone that you patrol is made up of 36 areas. Hold on, I'll bring up the map. There we go, this is the zone map. It shows all 36 areas. You can see it's in a grid of 6x6, and each area is broken into each area has its own load, and it's broken into a 14 by 14 grid system of sectors. So you can see we're in area B3 and currently in sector G7, which is also the location of the base station, which floats above this part of the planet, and this is where you come to resupply and effect repairs to the ship. Right, so that we may as well get started. But the idea of the game is that you've got to patrol or explore each area and recover 240 artifacts. Now, the reason you have to do this is because the area has been swamped by recent pirate activity, and the location of their base is hidden. It's hidden by a cloaking device, and there's a backdoor entry to left by whoever to there's a backdoor way of disabling the device, which means you have to discover all these artifacts, and once you do it, it unlocks parts of the of the 6 pirate maps. So we'll go into the menu here. Yeah, so the 6 pirate maps that have to be built up and decoded because they're all in code. Pirate maps. Yeah, so the 6 maps here, they're all empty at the minute, there's no point showing them. Now the game comes with, if you go to docking, it's got a default loadout, which I would not recommend using because it gives a sort of mixture of combat capability and exploration in terms of the fuel that you have. There's also a maximum weight that the ship has, and I tend to not focus on the combat in the game and more on the exploration. And that will become evident as we play the game. So I'll just go into the screen here and take down some of the weapons, and just to give us more fuel. Right, well that'll do nicely. And let's get started. So we're in this base station, as I said, so what we do is launch out the station. The controls are pretty easy actually, they're quite well thought out. Just firing forward to apply forward thrust. And as soon as we leave the station you'll see how jerky the graphics are. And oh, here we go. So it's not quite as jerky as Freescape, but then Freescape had solid 3D. The graphics are a bit more impressive. This is all just wireframe with no hidden surface removal like Elite had. So it can get a little bit messy at times, but I mean, it's too jerky for combat. I mean, for exploration, I think it's okay. Access have obviously realised this because what they've done is made the combat optional. So you can just completely turn the combat off, which I did. So I've recently completed this game because we're in lockdown. I didn't have much to do, so I thought, you know what, I fancy tackling that game. So it took me just over 2 weeks and 43 hours of game time, but I did manage to complete the game. So the idea is that we're looking for these objects, and they're easy to spot because they flash, so there's not one here obviously. This is just a normal building, but you do have to explore some buildings because some of the buildings they look a bit like billboards, and they have a piece of the cipher code on them. It will say like you know, whatever symbol means the letter Y or something like that. Now, if the graphics are too slow, you can actually toggle. Yeah, you can toggle you can turn off that grid system. Gives you some dots, so I can turn it off completely and just have the obstacles. This looks a bit odd, to be honest. It is a bit faster, but I actually prefer having the grid lines on. And it's not too jerky. It's not only really like noticeable if you do big manoeuvres. If you do steep turns like this is when it starts getting noticeable. But if you just sort of take it sort of more gentle approach to it, it is actually not too bad once you start playing it. This is don't know what that is actually. Yeah, so when it was reviewed in Zap, there was a lot of comparisons with Mercenary, and also the speed of the graphics do not even come close to what Paul Wilkes managed to achieve in Mercenary. They're just very slow here, but they are multicolour, to be fair. And like most flight sims, there's different views you can have: rear view, side views. There's also a down view which you need to teleport all the objects aboard. There's also a rather useless up view. I never used that one. Right, so where are we in this sector? Yeah, B6. Well, what I'll do is I'll go to another sector because there's not much in this. But so you can fly to the edge of the area map, and then it will take you into the next one. But you can also use the hyperspace function, which is accessed via the zone map. And once you start mapping out areas, they start to appear white. So we'll just press H, and then we'll go to another zone. There's no graphical effect; you just hear the engine cut in. It takes you to the next area. And I've got my little map here, I think. If I fly to... where do I want to fly to? F3. There'll be an object there waiting for me. So it's not random, you can map it all out. And There are some maps on the net showing everything, but I think a big part of the game's appeal is just the exploration, really. I think you'd really want to play it yourself. The control of the ship's pretty easy. It flies like a normal sort of flight sim, but there's also hover controls and auto center for pitch. For roll and pitch. There's auto center. That's turned on at the minute. Makes it a bit easier to fly. Yeah, the game also came with the option of buying a accessory called lipstick, which was a little headset you put in your head and you shouted into. It plugged into the joystick port. And if you wanted to fire the weapons, you could shout fire into it. Also, I don't have that, so I need to just press the F key to fire, which is not exactly any hardship because you've got to use a lot of keys anyway. So you'd be sitting close to the keyboard. I don't think it really brings much to it having that accessory. It just doesn't. Just seems a bit of a waste of money, to be honest. Although apparently you could use it with other games that use the spacebar. You plug it into port 1 and shoot fire into it, so I guess it may be useful for some games. There's some stuff floating in orbit in this one. There's not much point in exploring that. They're just floating spaceships or asteroids. Where am I going here? You can also bring up there's a sector map as well, which is pretty useless. Never use it. So right away I think you can see the game, there's some flashing objects there, but you can see the game, it just doesn't have the sort of pace that Mercenary had. It is very slow, but the game does come with a nice manual, and what it does, it sets a lot of the backstory and it sets up a couple of mysteries that you can unlock as you play the game. You discover objects that tell you a bit of, or unravel the mystery. So there's a missing freighter and a missing scientist, and there's an operative that leaves clues as well. So you've got to be at an altitude of 50 meters or less. Yeah, sound effects are pretty basic, just an engine hum and a couple of thuds and explosions that sound that they came straight out of Beachhead, which is by the same developers, funnily enough. What we do is just switch to the down view here and manoeuvre over. It doesn't have to be exactly in the crosshair as long as it's on the screen. Just a Commodore key to collect. And it's got to load in some stuff here. This is why I don't think the game would work on cassette very well. So it's a data storage disk. It says cross proceeds horn. So in the game, once you get to the end of the game and decipher all the pirate maps, each map tells you to go to a specific place and perform a specific manoeuvre or action. And there's a certain order that you've got to do it in, and that's what the cross proceeds horn means. And there's a whole bunch of these clues, and you have to write them down and piece together what order to do it in. But actually, it's mostly, I think it's just in the order of the pirate maps on the list that I showed earlier on. Anyway, there's some ciphers here. You can see that the characters mean number 4 or letter I. So you've got to write all these down so you can decipher the code later in the game. So Major Allen's the operative that's missing, so you can see he's left a message here. So we'll cash in for credits. If you don't cash in for credits, all it does is it just teleports it back down. So here we are, it's giving us a piece of the map, bottom left corner there. And that's really the bulk of the game. It's just searching for all these pieces and having to decipher. I mean, it's not too much of the game, really. It's you need a lot of patience to explore all the areas. Most of the buildings, they don't have any significance, but there are some more. I mean, that's a fairly uninteresting sort of, cuboid shape, but there are some more interesting shapes. And the more interesting they are, the slower the graphics get, obviously. It never generally drops below 1 frame per second, but it doesn't quite get to Freescape levels. As I say, they're not as interesting to look at as Freescape, I think. Yeah, the map at the centre of the screen, they are actually showing squares, but they look a bit rectangular. I think that's because it's an American game, and I think the NTSC aspect ratio is a bit narrower. Well, it is in videos that I've seen on YouTube, anyway. Yeah, I think this is a billboard type building down here that I'm approaching now. So the graphic engine it displays all the objects in the sector that you're currently in, and all the ones in a sector square surrounding whatever square you're in. Let's see what this is. Just hold down fire to stop, that's quite well done. Let's lose a bit of altitude. Flip to our side view. You can also, I'll move back a bit. You don't have to fly towards Earth, and there's also a zoom function, which is, yeah, there we go. So it tells us that 4 equals that symbol. Looks a bit like an O. And we'll zoom out again. So I can't remember, there's like 15, how many zoom levels are? Let's have a look. There's quite a lot of zoom levels, but as I say, the engine only draws one sector ahead of you. So you can't just stay stationary and zoom right all the way across the map, you've got to fly. You can also zoom the overhead window in the middle there, the map window, but never bothered doing that because I just didn't see the point of it. Yeah, you can zoom that in, but I always left it fully zoomed out. There's another feature that the manual goes into great detail of saying, trying to sell it as being some wonderful thing, and that is the RPV, remote piloted vehicle. So you can also land the ship. And press Z to deploy the RPV, and like 6 to go to the RPV's point of view, and then shift to control the RPV. So this is us in the remote piloted vehicle, and that's us looking at the ship. So we're in it's like a little drone, and it controls fairly similar to the ship, except that you can actually drive on the ground as well, but you can also fly. if I flick back to the ship, I should be able to see the RPV if I zoom. Yeah, so that's us looking at the RPV. And what you can do is you can sort of tether the RPV to the ship, so if you fly, the RPV will follow, and you can control the ship or the RPV from separately. You don't have to view it. So if I'm still on the ship, but if I haven't pressed shift, so if I'm still controlling the RPV, so I'm actually controlling the RPV, but I can look at it remotely. Sounds great, but actually I played the whole game without even using the RPV. You don't have to use it, so that's me controlling the RPV. But I played the whole game without even using it. Flip back to the RPV. I just didn't see the point in using it, because you don't have to. Because if you have to pick up an object, you have to be in the ship. Use the teleport on the ship. So what we'll do is we'll just go back to the ship, press the teleport button, and recover the RPV. Why can't we recover it? There we go. RPV retrieved. Right, so that's the RPV covered. That's most of the exploration covered. I suppose I ought to cover the combat. So what I'll do is I'll get a bit of altitude. So, like I said, the combat can be turned off or on. And you can all you do is go into the options and decide what level of combat you like. And I think Access realised that the graphic engine was really struggling, so they gave you this option just to turn it off. The structured display, that will turn off the zone grids and all the obstacles if you're if an enemy appears. It tries to make the graphics simpler so it's not as jerky, but it doesn't work. It doesn't make any difference. It's just too jerky. So if we turn on very heavy, one should appear right away, hopefully. And this is really where the game falls down. I think the graphics are fine. They're fast enough just for the exploration part. And I really enjoyed the exploration part for a while. And so there's 36 areas, and after I'd explored about 15 of them, I was starting to get a bit bored. I think maybe a 5x5 grid of 25 areas would have been maybe more interesting. So it's got a little blip there. I did briefly see a ship. Oh, there he is. We can turn on our weapon system. F to fire, isn't it? So there's also zoom in. I think he's just holding off, isn't he? But we can see the graphics are just getting ridiculously jerky. I'll zoom back out a bit. And there's obstacle courses and firing ranges that you can improve your skills in. Oh. Oh, I think he's gone. But you can see how jerky that was. It's not much fun. I mean, you can do it, but I prefer playing the whole game with it turned off. I think we're under attack from behind now. What I'll do is, oh, there he is. Nope, 2 ships. Three ships. Or is it just 2? But what I'll do is, I'll just check it out. I think I'll bring up the map. and we'll fly back to the base station. So the base station's in the middle of this. So what's in area B3, sector G7. We'll do is we'll turn off the combat. I think we've seen enough of that, but you can see that that's really the way the game falls down, I think. It's a real shame because it needs the combat to break up the monotony of the exploration. But I just didn't enjoy it with the combat, I just had to have it turned off. And to be fair, they gave you the option to turn it off. The game would have been pretty horrendous if you didn't have that option. So yep, it's an exploration game at its heart. It's not a fast-paced arcade game. Oh, you can see this base station up there. Again, it's pretty jerky. I think one of the problems with the combat as well, that they made the ships too detailed graphically. I think they could have just simplified them. So that's Echelon for you. Yeah, you can see it as a exploration 3D game. It's not as fast or fast-paced or as Mercenary, and it doesn't really have this sort of humour that Mercenary had as well. It's a little bit on the dry side. And maybe it's just a bit too ambitious for the C64, but I think Mercenary's graphics were just as good as these in terms of the detail. Never mind the speed. But I think this would have been a pretty good game on the Amiga or ST, but I don't think it was released on them. There is a PC version kicking around. I've seen videos of it on YouTube, and it's predictably a lot faster, as it should be. There are no collisions in the game apart from the RPV and your ship and the base station. But otherwise you can just fly through the mountains and stuff like that. Which does make it a bit easier. So yeah, it took me a couple of weeks to complete it, and I was mostly time well spent. I think I did quite enjoy it. I don't think it's because of the speed of the graphics lets it down, the gameplay down, and because of the I can't really have the combat on. It's not as good a game as it could have been. I don't think it's a great game, but it's still decent-ish. It still offers quite a bit of entertainment. So I'll give it 7 out of 10. It's a pretty decent game, but yeah, I can't imagine too many people would probably want to play a game this slow these days. It does need quite a bit of time commitment. So that's his doctor. Yep, 7 out of 10 for Echelon, and see you in the next video.